Well, first of all, thank you for having us. It's an honor to be here and to talk on this little stage. My name is Alex. I'm here with my dear friend and colleague Maik Kähler, who is, as we heard, founder of Lili Studios. Lili Studios belongs to Serviceplan Group and is located in LA and Lisbon. And in this studio, we are creating virtual spaces and virtual experiences. So today we want to talk about museums beyond now. So what is the future of a museum? And now we could ask ourselves, why is Serviceplan Group spending time in creating museums? Because we are a tech media advertising agency. So the first reason, obviously, is because we love art, as you can see in this building. But this is not the first reason why we are creating museums. We think that a museum is the most advanced and probably the most difficult creative space, virtual space to create, because we have to deal with many different layers of the intention of an artist, the interplay of art and architecture in the virtual space, etc., etc. So we want to learn. And as we can learn from building virtual museums and tackle all the challenges around that topic, we can also transfer this knowledge into other spaces, which we already did for Apple Music or concerts, streaming concerts for Billie Eilish or Lady Gaga, or you name it. So we want to learn on the most difficult areas, which we think is virtual museums. So what we want to show and what we want to talk about today is 2 museums that we are actually creating and that will be launched in the next 8 weeks. The first one is a museum for the Art Directors Club in New York, which we call 101+1, which is a very interesting thing, circling a little bit more around the topic of design. And the idea and our intention is that we wanted to capture a moment of time also according to AI. So we asked 101 artists and designers from all around the world to use AI, which is the +1 in the name, so 101+1 is the AI, to tackle the problem or the challenge of coming up with a digital piece of art created by AI. And then we created a kind of a it's a digital monument consisting out of 101 cubes, and you can enter every cube, but it's not the intention to picture only the piece of art that the artist was creating. It is to show the whole process of the creation of this single piece with interviews and the surrounding or the cultural surrounding of the country where it comes from. The other museum on the right-hand side is a III museum, which I would call a more traditional museum in the virtual space, because it is actually a building you can enter. So it's a lot about the architecture. You can enter this museum and you can walk through the rooms and look at the pieces of art. It is for the Afghani collection, Afghani Foundation, which is probably the biggest, definitely the biggest private collection of contemporary Iranian art, which again makes it very sensitive, obviously, as we are talking about other cultural challenges. And we ask ourselves, what are the radical opportunities in virtual experiences? And Maik will lead you a little bit through the 2 museums right now.
Thank you very much. So first of all, thank you for having us here. I'm really excited to show you that. And the probably most important opportunity we see in creating a virtual museum is really the ability to amplify the intention. Meaning the artistic intention, there's a curator intention. I would like to show you a few things, but I think we can use technology to bring out intention, artistic intention on a whole different level than we can in many other physical environments. Let me give you one example here to give you a little bit of context. So this is the III museum we developed for this Iranian, specifically Iranian, contemporary Iranian art. The goal was to by the collector Mo Afghani to create really a global stage for contemporary Iranian voices, Iranian artists to be heard, which not often is the case, artists from all around the world. So as you see here already, and you can call this probably even the collector's attempt and intention, scale was really important to him to really bring it to a certain gravity, to bring the art world out there on a certain gravity. So it's basically this hovering giant sphere over a couple of different building volumes. But let me give you one very specific example here. This is one experience inside the museum for a sculpture made by Mahmoud Bakshi. It's called, the artwork itself is a sculpture with a neon tulip, basically out of the Iranian flag. The artwork is called Tulips Rise from the Blood of the Nation's Youth. And as you can see on the right side, there's a series of sculptures, actually 8, all in different collections, so never really together. But they actually get much better if there are more of them, because what the idea is that the red neon light is actually turning the entire room really into a very red blood environment. So we said, how can we increase that? What the artist actually tried to achieve, and through physical limitations, is hard to achieve. So we said, okay, what if in this experience, the entire museum is empty out, and we replicate this sculpture 5,000 times and put it in every room, on every balcony, on every terrace, everything you see. And not only that, but the user is actually the one who switches on by moving around, by looking around. So everywhere you look, we switch on the neon light. And so by the time you really engage with this, it's actually, you're creating this, sorry to say, this bloodbath. And this is now really, in a way, creating an experience. In no museum in the world, this would be possible for every individual user to give this experience. So one example to increase the artistic intent. Here's another example talking about the curator's intention for collection, for show. And what we decided here is actually, this is virtual architecture. What if we take this giant sphere and cut it in half? And there's obviously one half missing, there's no boundaries, you can literally fall off if you want. But more importantly, so there's a giant message there, because the curator decided to collect in one side of this only male artists with male subjects, and obviously on the other side, only female artists with female topics and subjects, which you can imagine as this radicality also, and we scaled up all the artwork. So the sphere is 200 meters in diameter in its original proportion, and the artwork is filling the entire room. So it's a very universal message, if you want, about society, the separation between the genders in there. So an example about curatorial intention. The next thing we think is a giant opportunity is really enriching the experience, enhancing the experience by creating new elements, introducing new elements to an experience, which is also not possible in the physical world. And this is actually always our driving question, is like, what can we add in a virtual world that we couldn't do anywhere else? So, and if that's a good answer, then it's a good reason to do it. Otherwise, there are different ways to do this. So this is an example of, can we introduce elements to a museum, to an art experience that we otherwise wouldn't have. And the one thing that was very interesting to us, like thinking about the concept of a museum. What is actually a museum? A place where people engage with art, because if nobody is coming, and we've been through 2 years of closed museums and pandemics, I mean, basically, that's just an art storage, right? If you have a building, there's art, but nobody goes inside. So really what makes it a museum is people engaging with art. So we developed this idea of reactive walls and asked, can't we create a museum that is basically creating rooms with people being there, and architecture with people being there? And I'll give you 3 quick examples of how this comes to life. So this is also real-time particle animation based on movement in the room, based on eye contact in the room, so where you're looking as a user. And in this case, we wanted to create a more intimate sphere, even though we didn't want to put this collection of Tavis Panavoli into a separate corner. So we put it out there on one of the big balconies, but created a space basically with sand walls. And so the more you engage, the more people come in, the more this room gets a little bit confined, more intimate. Another example is this room. It's a grouping for pieces of art only dealing with the topic of oil. The question, blessing or curse, the topic of that room. And we said, okay, not only is it a dark, confined room, but it's also, the entire room, as you can see here, is basically also has walls, ceiling, out of oil, and create contextually just a very different environment. So looking at this topic, looking at pieces with this, dealing with this topic, it brings you into a completely different environment looking at this. And this is one of the rooms I'm most proud of, actually, because it also adds even, I think, not just a design layer to it, but also really a contextual layer with more gravity. So this is a room about pieces of art dealing with the topic of migration, specifically about migration over water, which is obviously a giant topic globally. And so what we've done is let the user basically be in the water. And there are two sides of the room, 3 works on migration on the one side, and then this giant drawing on the other side of the water, if you want, which is about the genesis of life, the new life. So basically also here, a spatial translation of leaving an old life, migrating over water towards a new life. So it also shows you it's not only the curation in the room of which do we pair on which walls, but we can create relationships and context which we couldn't anywhere else. And the last thing to describe or to talk about as an opportunity is for us maximizing the relevance for the user of for the visitor, what they see. And here I want to come back to the museum that Alex described at the beginning, museum we will launch in actually 2 weeks for the Art Directors Club. So what's really interesting about this one and really special that we were not just interested in showing a piece of art. It was actually more the question, how can we basically capture this moment? How can we capture this process of making art, and designers and artists engaging with AI technology. So we created actually, first of all, different experiences with different AI real-time technologies that influence the architecture the moment you are in. But I don't want to talk about that too much, but I want to talk about the rooms itself. So we have, in the end, 101 rooms. Every room is basically designed by the country flag, where it's from, and the initials of the designer, which creates the framework for the room, always different, always created by the machine if you want. But then you see inside every room, there's this bubble, and that is actually where we capture the process. So we have a formal layer of this. There's a formal rigid structure of the cube, which is housing the original prompt in the AI, the final outcome, and then there's this bubble inside every one of these 101 cubes. And what that means ultimately is you're looking at an experience that has many, many, many different layers. So we have more than 300 connected environments. So, and it's a good example of it's a fully it's a fully self-driven experience that you create what you want to see next, and more importantly, how deep you really want to go into a topic, because there are many, many, many layers with a bubble inside a cube, and inside the bubble, there are more layers and more elements, which you will see if you visit on January 31st. And I hand back to Alex. Thank you.
Just to sum it up for now, is like that we have learned that we see 3 radical opportunities to move physical museums, physical exhibitions into the digital world, into the virtual world. Which is the first one, is that we can amplify the intention of the artist. We can enhance the experience through interaction, of course, and we can maximize relevance through your own curation. You can run through the whole show, through the whole building, through the whole exhibition in your own path, and you can put things together that actually you cannot, of course, you cannot move in a physical exhibition. And so as I said at the beginning, we do this to learn, and what we learned so far is to unleash the full power of we have in our hands. We need to be very, very sensitive. So it's a very sensitive topic, as you can imagine. To amplify the intention of an artist is a quite sensitive thing. And this is something that we have learned so far. So it is not about using technology because we have it, or we can use it, or we know how to use it. It is more that it is there. We do not have to use everything all the time, but we can always create a new space. We always have to create a new space. We have to be very sensitive in dealing with artists, with curators, with brands, with products, to come up with a very nice and perfect room, virtual space in the end. So that's it from us. Thank you for listening. Thanks for having us. And please have a look on 31st of January in our first museum that we will launch, the ADC.